Have you ever noticed that the people who give the most often receive the least? Think about that. The people who always answer the phone, the people who always show up, the people who always help, the people who always understand, the people who always forgive. Why does it seem like they're often the ones carrying the heaviest emotional weight? Hello everyone, and welcome back. Tonight, I want to talk about something that sounds like a strength, but can quietly become a prison, being too nice. And before you misunderstand me, this isn't a message about becoming cold, or selfish, or uncaring. It's about something deeper, because there is a difference between kindness and self-abandonment, and many people spend years confusing the two. Maybe you've done this before. Maybe somebody asked you for a favor, and you immediately said yes, even though you were exhausted. Maybe someone crossed a boundary, and you stayed silent because you didn't want conflict. Maybe somebody disappointed you repeatedly, and you kept giving them more chances, not because they earned them, but because you felt guilty walking away. And honestly, that's where the problem begins. Because many people are not kind because they want to be. They're kind because they're afraid. Afraid of disappointing others. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of being disliked. Afraid of being seen as selfish. So instead of saying what they really feel, they smile, they agree, they sacrifice, and they slowly disappear. Think about that. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you apologized for something that wasn't your fault? How many times have you stayed in situations that were hurting you simply because leaving felt uncomfortable? And maybe the most important question, how many times have you abandoned yourself to keep somebody else comfortable? Because that's the hidden cost nobody talks about. People think being too nice hurts your schedule or your energy, but that's not the real price. The real price is your identity. Every time you ignore your own needs, you teach yourself something. You teach yourself that everybody else's feelings matter more than yours. Everybody else's priorities matter more than yours. Everybody else's comfort matters more than yours. And eventually, you stop treating yourself like someone worth protecting. You become available to everyone, except yourself. And that's exhausting, because no matter how much you give, it never feels like enough. There is always another request, another favor, another expectation, another emotional burden. And the strange thing, the more available you become, the more people expect it. Not because they're evil, because humans adapt. If you answer every call, people expect answers. If you solve every problem, people expect solutions. If you never create boundaries, people stop looking for them. And eventually, the thing that made you valuable becomes the thing draining your life. And maybe that's why so many people feel secretly resentful, not because they're bad people, not because they hate helping, but because they've spent years giving from an empty cup, years saying yes when they meant no, years suppressing frustration, years pretending everything is okay. And one day, the pressure becomes too much, because buried emotions don't disappear. They accumulate, quietly, patiently, waiting, until eventually, something breaks. And maybe you've experienced that. Maybe you've reached a moment where you suddenly became angry, or distant, or emotionally exhausted, and everybody around you seemed confused, because from their perspective, you were always okay, but they never saw the cost. They never saw how much you were carrying. They never saw the conversations you wanted to have, the boundaries you wanted to create, the truth you wanted to speak. And honestly, that happens a lot, because people can't respect boundaries you never communicate. And that's a difficult truth. Many people wait for others to magically understand their limits. But life doesn't work like that. Nobody can read your mind. Nobody knows what you're tolerating silently. Nobody knows what you're sacrificing privately. Which means, eventually, you must speak. And for people pleasers, that feels terrifying, because they're not afraid of speaking. They're afraid of the consequences. What if somebody gets upset? What if somebody leaves? What if somebody thinks I'm selfish? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the better question is, what happens if you never speak? What happens if you spend the next 10 years saying yes to everything? What happens if you keep abandoning yourself every time somebody asks for more? What happens if everybody gets access to your energy, except you? Because eventually, the person paying the price will be you, not them, you. And maybe that's why healthy boundaries are so important, not because they push people away, but because they protect what matters: your peace, your time, your mental health, your future. And honestly, the people who truly care about you will learn to respect them. The people who only benefited from your lack of boundaries may not. And that realization surprises a lot of people. Because sometimes, the moment you stop overgiving, you discover who actually valued you and who simply valued your usefulness. And maybe the saddest part about being too nice is that eventually you forget what you actually want, because you've spent so many years adapting to everyone else that your own voice becomes difficult to hear. Your own needs become unclear. Your own happiness becomes optional. And honestly, that's not kindness. That's self-neglect. Because real kindness should never require you to disappear. Real love should never require you to betray yourself. Real relationships should never depend on your silence. And maybe that's the lesson many people learn too late. The people who deserve a place in your life will not require unlimited access to it. They will respect your boundaries. They will respect your time. They will respect your peace. And maybe for the first time, you need to stop asking, how do I keep everyone happy? And start asking, why am I always the one being sacrificed? Because your life matters too. Your energy matters too. Your future matters too. And maybe the most powerful word you'll learn this year isn't yes, it's no. No to guilt, no to constant people-pleasing, no to abandoning yourself. Because every time you protect your peace, you teach people how to treat you. And more importantly, you teach yourself what you believe you're worth. And honestly, that might be the beginning of finally choosing yourself. Not because you became selfish, but because you finally stopped treating yourself like you matter less than everyone else.